Welcome to Robert Craig's 12th in a series of virtual tastings, hosted by Elton Slone, with special guest Tom Altemus, owner of Red Cap Vineyards. Today's tasting is Turn It Up to 11, featuring the 2011 Howell Mountain Cabernet Sauvignon, the 2011 Spring Mountain Cabernet Sauvignon, and the 2011 Mount Veeder Cabernet Sauvignon. We hope you enjoyed today's tasting. If you'd like to taste alongside Elton, these wines are available on our website. Also, check video details below for links to future live virtual tastings.
Hello, everybody out there in Craigland, and happy 1st of May. I can't believe it, but I'm fresh in off the streets of Arizona, and welcoming you all to Turn It Up to 11 with Jamie Castro down below, who manages everything direct to consumer at Robert Craig Winery. And we're very fortunate to have Tom Altemus, my neighbor, friend, fellow board member for Howell Mountain Vintners and Growers. As I said, yesterday was the first time I've traveled in a year for wine business in COVID. And it's so gratifying to have all of these people. We have another sold out webinar. I'm just amazed. Jamie's been shipping around the clock, so hopefully everybody received their wine okay. But just a few shout outs. I just can't believe how many awesome people that we have on this afternoon. Doug and Ellen Dickler, the Leahys, Dave and Carol. Yes, thank you for the housewarming. The lamp was amazing. Rob Ludwig, Andy and Tammy Nichols. And Andy, I know you got a birthday coming up here, brother. So I just want you to know, on Tuesday, we're going to be raising a glass to the north to toast you. We miss you around here. But Louis Napoli, TC Frazier, yes. Joe Rapolo, thank you, Joe. James Hubbard, Dan O'Connor, Brad Gray, the Grays, welcome back again. You guys are styling. We're wearing those beautiful scarves that you made us. But Ty, oh my goodness, and Candy, great to see you guys on. Christy Shyrock, Jonathan Van Houten and Joyce Stein, thank you. Victor Andrade, we love you. Victor, thanks so much. David Harrington and Bruce Kern, Craig Plouffe. Craig, I need to get my allocation, by the way, of Tepicite. Gary and Linda Ayers, our Napa stalwarts, thank you. John Moore, George Paul, Lee, Nick Goner, Deborah Weir, in for every single one of these. It's official, I think 13 in a row. Or 14 in a row, Jonathan Kuhn, the Vales, Brooke and Jeff, thanks so much for coming on. We love you guys. Lee Christensen, Brian McCarthy, Olivia Rudin. Hey, Olivia, happy anniversary. Greg Stobie, Greg Staub, Greg, I hope you're doing well. It's great to hear from you up there in the mountains. Greg. Steve McCullough, John Masserini, Patrick and Lisa Stam, fire up. Joan and Bob Brown, Janet Kalin, Pete Srezrovich and the Chicago 7. To all of our guys, to Jeffrey and JB, and first and foremost, your beautiful ladies. Love you guys. Diane Thomas, Rick and Sherry Simonetti. Great to see you guys on. Hello, Tampa. Michael White, Doug Cannon, Paul Pettit, John Foles, John Burkhart. Oh my God, John Taramino, Donna Gamboni, Chris and Jen Cordes. Hey, you guys, hope you made it to Nashville okay. Brendan Steve Curley, John F. Worley, my roommates from college are on here from Morgan Hill. How are you guys doing? And Scott Marshall, Michael Nguyen, who's here in the studio, the Howell Monk. But Jeff and Cindy Petit, Jeff Hayden, Joseph Kramer, Jeremy Wendell, Todd McCullough, Todd, keep Indy strong. Holly and Mark Engelhart, Keith Harrington, the KC crew, I love you guys. I just saw, Brian and his beautiful lady out here, Laura Lynn Kane, Rodilla Podeno, Terry Hallahan, Candy and Vince Solito. I know Vince may not be on, Candy, but it was great to see you last night. And KC Wine Guy, Jen and Jason Guerrero. I don't have time for any more shout outs, so I'm going to stop there. But my God, thanks so much for coming in. And I feel like, let me go to share screen. But before, let me introduce you first to Tom Altemus, friend, neighbor, compatriot on Howell Mountain, proprietor at Red Cap Vineyards with his beautiful wife, Desiree. I was hoping we get a Des sighting, but Anytime the Hal Monk shows up, that's almost as sexy. So we're going to get to Tom. He makes exclusively Hal Mountain. He's not crazy enough to want to go out and lose money on every other mountain AVA in the Napa Valley like I do. But in any rate, Tom is a great friend as well as an awesome vintner. And I don't have my, I didn't bring my damn mouse, so I have to go manually to share a screen. So here we go. Let me give you what's up. So yesterday would have been my man Bob Craig's 83rd birthday. So I've been thinking about Bob a lot. There's Bob and Adam Glatt in 2011 in our favorite local hunt, the Trancas Street Steakhouse, which Bob always dubbed Le Trancé. And they serve a stiff martini right there. You can see Adam Glatt's on his way to convincing Bob of something or being convinced of something. So happy birthday in heaven, Bob. I love you, man. Here I was yesterday in Arizona. If you've never been to Lon's Hermosa Grill, it's one of the great patios in the world. And that's my man, Rich, who is one of the big dogs at Southern Wine and Spirits. Whoops. I can't get rid of that. Okay, there we go. Here we have, this was me last night, you know, as we were closing in on 1 a.m. There's Vince and Candy Solito. There's a selfie. It looks like I ate all of their food. But just so you know, this is what's going on up on Howell Mountain right now. This was just like 2 weeks ago. We weren't quite into bud break, but you can see what an amazing job up there. We're going to have this wine from this vineyard tonight. We did not own Candlestick back in 2011, but you can see what a great job Pete Richmond is doing. And Tom and I are going to discuss when he's going to cane prune at his place coming up here soon. Oh, for the love of God. There we go. So as much damage from the fire, I showed everybody these intense photographs of all the fire damage, but you can see it's turning back to green up top. It's much less depressing. So this was right before it started, the buds started breaking, and then right after, as usual, we got a nice little hailstorm up there. This was taken 2 days ago up there. I took this shot in the front vineyard, and it's so cool to look at what's going on, you know, on Howell Mountain, Tom and Michael. You guys know, I mean, things are barely getting out there, and you go down to the valley floor, and it looks like June out there already. I mean, the vines are in full flight. This is the new blood at Robert Craig, Scott Johnson, director of our wine club. And I'm sure Jamie is telling him how to do one more thing correctly right there in the photograph up on Candlestick. And here's a shot of Candlestick before the fire looking down. And this is what it looked like when I was up there with Jamie and Scott. So it still looks like a little bit of a burned out husk, but it's coming back, people. It's coming back. And you can see, even after taking a hit, Mother Nature, it's green up there. We're digging a well. If anybody wants to give me $300,000, now is the time. Here we are. We're just finishing up. This is right before bottling, putting the 2019 wines to bed, which I said 2016 was the best vintage since 74, and I take that back. I think it's 2019 now. And you can see Jason and Kirsten and Keith Emerson tasting wine with us. So we're finishing up the 19s. They are extraordinary at the winery. Here's a great shot of bottling. If you think you've been through hell during COVID, whatever this year has brought you, the fires, no matter what any of us are doing, this is a perfect opportunity for boomerang and bottling, because that's what these guys do all day, every day. And it is the worst bitch of a job that you could ever ask for. Bottling is tough, but it's one of the 2 times a year in production that you can really make or break your wine quality. So we're very fortunate to have a great bottling team to come up there, and the 19s are in bottle. Here we are with the mags. This is awesome. I could watch that all day. And then we tasted through mega library wines. We all went up there and tasted through, you know, all of these gorgeous mountain wines in Affinity from the early 90s on up. And one thing, as you look at the corks, became very clear. The use of a DM cork is absolutely critical to the longevity of wine. I taste 195 Hal Mountain and say, this wine's shot. Let's just throw the rest of that out. And then Jason would say, well, open up a couple more. We'd open the next one, and it'd be one of the most spectacular wines I ever had in my life. And so my commitment to DM, I won't go into that again here, but all I can say is that there's a reason. And now that brings us to my man, T.A., Tom Altemus. And Desiree, I swear to God, she must be blind or mentally impaired or something. Tom, you did well. You did well.
She's legally blind.
So this is a great shot of Tom, and Red Cap is just south and a little bit east and a little bit just barely down the hill. But our winemaker used to be Rudy Zudima, who is your winemaker now. And Bob Craig even helped Tom kind of get started on the property, but we'll go into that. So this is when I knew Tom and I were going to be buds. Tom came over when the fires hit, and this is a great shot of Tom going back and forth. It really was devastating that day. And you can see just looking up, I just remember you pulling your mask up over your head and saying, my God, you know, Carlos and Tom checking it out. You see how smoky it was. And this, we decided we would decamp to Red Cap 5 minutes away. And this is that gorgeous vineyard site. We'll come back to here, Tom, when you open your wine. But I want you all to see what it's just this beautiful estate. 7 acres?
10.5 acres, 6 acres planted.
6 acres planted. Those are the only acres that I count, Tom. Those are the only acres I count.
Property tax says otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. But at any rate, we ended up drinking way too much wine with the hammering of the generator serenading us in the background. And oh yeah, you guys should definitely go, because Tom is a painter. I thought I would put a little bit of Shelley and I's recent trip to the Van Gogh immersive.
I've got a ticket.
It's indescribable. So that's a lousy rendition of it, but if you get the chance to go to this, my people. Right? You have to do it. So Tom has inspired me with their art. And now we arrive at the wine program, which you're all already ahead of me. We're going to go Spring Mountain, which is traditionally our most elegant. Mount Veeder, which is an absolute whopper from Pimray Vineyard. And we'll finish up on Hal Mountain, and Tom and I will discuss both of our 11s. But I just pulled a screen snapshot today from Antonio Galloni's review of the 11 vintage, which I thought was really telling. The 2011 Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignons had turned out better than I expected. It was a challenging vintage, but the best wines will surprise readers for their aromatic intensity, finesse, balance, and sense of place. Cold, damp mornings with heavy fog, typical Napa Valley harvest weather, right? Not exactly, but that's 2011, one of the strangest growing seasons I've seen anywhere. The early mornings in St. Helena, where I was staying, looked more like Piedmont than California. On the mornings I ventured to Hal Mountain and Pritchard Hill, something bizarre and beautiful happened. No more fog, no more rain, and plenty of sunshine. Above the fog line, everything was different. That was the first lesson I learned in 2011. Terroir matters. Yes, there are some well-draining valley floor sites that did well, but 2011 is a year where the hillside vineyards are the stars. Most importantly, 2011 is a beautiful vintage through which to discover what makes Napa Valley's best terroirs so compelling. Now, I could not have possibly have been seated, and I could not have possibly written anything as an introduction to the 2011 mountain wines. We made really delicious wine at Affinity in 11, but we definitely struggled with some of the lower crop, and on Spring Mountain selection was key. How long have you had your winery there, Tom, or your wine business, your vineyard?
So we cleared the land in '03. Vines went in spring of '04.
Oh, four.
First vintage '06.
Wow. And sometimes like that '06, I've had it, you hit it out of the chart with those young vines right away,
Yeah,
you
for
know, it really pops. And give me a little bit of your background as I'm getting ready to start us out. Let me pour some 2011 wine. We're going to start with Spring Mountain, 2011 Crowley Vineyard. And I'm going to keep asking Tom some questions. And I want you all to gaze longingly because Tom came from the world of chefing and art. Look at this beautiful piece. Is that your girlfriend or?
That's my daughter. No offense. Yeah, it's my little girl.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. That looks like it's down on Point Reyes or something.
Down by Mendocino, seaside.
Oh, seaside.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Right.
So 06, first vintage. And so you got 06, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11 were all tough. Those were cold, wet vintages.
Well, we had trouble in '08 with frost. Lost half our crop in '08.
Oh, that's right.
And same thing in 2010, identical. And I don't know how it was with you guys, but for us, it was May 22nd, 22 degrees on 2008 and 2010. So something with the 22s. But we lost half our crop. Well, lost everything, half came back.
Wow.
And then 11 was the next difficult year.
You know,
Right?
you thought, why am I in this business? 08, fortunately our property is so sloped that you guys are a little bit back in the woods where the air doesn't quite move as
Right.
much. And our property is so sloped, we've never even needed a wind machine, but I can imagine that was devastating. You're going to get frost right at flower or fruit set. That's pretty much when the gods tell me that they're going to get back at me for everything I've done in this lifetime. But it's always been amazing to me that your wines have that spectacular Howell Mountain essence to them, that real red, super high iron content, low mineral soil. It's, I believe, a basalt soil series is what you would call that at your place.
Aiken loam.
Loam.
Mhm.
I'm aching for bacon. Fantastic. Well, let's get started on a little Spring Mountain. Tom here and Monk, you got to come around, Michael, and say hi to everybody.
You're not going to say hi, Mike?
Oh,
Here, come on around. I have to introduce you to the man that introduced me to social media. A reason that I've met so many of the folks out there is Michael Nguyen, AKA the Howell Monk. It's great to see him down. We're all vaccinated up in the office today. It's a sense of freedom here.
Free love.
Free love. There is no free love. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned one. I saw the name come on a long time ago for registration, but I think the Brandauers might be on in New York City, friends of Michael Nugent. So Brandauers, if you're on, we love you. Great to have you on as well. But in any event, the 11 Spring, I think of all the wines that we made, this wine was the most difficult. Spring Mountain, the soil, it's a little wetter over there. A lot of the weather comes through that little, gap there on Spring Mountain. And they have a little bit of clay content in the soil up there. And so I just remember this wine was all about selection. That was one of the first years we used an optical sorter because it was so difficult with affinity. The bunches on Howell Mountain and on Mount Veeder, it was great. Spring Mountain was difficult, but this wine, it needs a second out of the bottle to kind of collect itself and lose it has a little hit of herbal stink to me right off the bat. But then that just immediately blows off and you get this wine that has this incredible class and presence. And it's just so young.
So let me ask you this, Elton, for spring, not my favorite appellation, but I want to say it's because people kind of tend to over oak their wine, which this one isn't.
Are you a Spring Mountain racist?
Kind of. But I just feel it's a little heavy-handed over there, with some exceptions. I'm wondering what do you think about that fruit that makes people think they gotta really just pump it with oak so much?
That's a good question. I think I think there have been some producers up there. Some of my very favorite, one of my favorites is Philip Togney, which I've always just loved that wine and thought it's the class of Napa until Galoni gave it the 100-point score and they doubled their price. And, that was a hurtful day to me and my Napa Valley wine collecting, but I love Marston Cabernet. La Jolla certainly makes a very nice Spring Mountain, but Jess doesn't need any more of your money. I don't know about paying $450 for a bottle of wine, but that wine is delicious. But I agree with you. There are, and I will not name names, but it seems to be the new in vogue for people to think that because they're in the mountains, they need to just completely load the wine with so much oak. I mean, this wine right here has spent 20 months in 80% brand new French oak, but it's all about super tight grained, thin stave. So 22 millimeter staves instead of 28 millimeter, and you don't get that really sort of sawn wood heavy oak that sits on top of the wine. But I'm with you. To me, Spring Mountain, I love the perfume and I love the lushness of the wine. And so a lot of people that really like our Howell Mountain, Spring Mountain may not be their favorite, but I like different expressions. And the beauty of Robert Craig, I've always felt, is how well the wines show the individual vineyards. All these wines do not taste alike. And the Howell is so incredibly different than the Spring Mountain. And that's why that always informs my mission in our winemaking. And that's why I've loved your wines from the get-go, is because they taste so much like Howell Mountain. I mean, if you were going to pull out a wine that you wanted to say to somebody, what does Howell Mountain taste like? I cannot think of a wine that balances the intensity, the ageability, but also this welcoming, gorgeous, wild brambleberry fruit that your wine has in it. So we're of the same mind, which is why we end up drinking wine together frequently. And the month. So any questions from anybody out there? Did anybody want to know how they can get tickets to that Van Gogh exhibit? Because let me tell you, if you support KQED, they'll give you some preferred times, but it's sold out here until the end of time, I think through June or something, or July, but it's really extraordinary. So I highly advise you do that. We're sitting, Tom is a painter, and this is, what is this piece you've done here, Tom?
This is a piece I did when the Iraq War came out, and it's a little somber, but I call it my war flag. I was a little angry about them starting that war. And there was a lot of oil. I don't know if you remember at the time, but a lot of oil and black smoke in the air, and sand and stuff like that. So those are the kind of colors in that. And those individual pieces are all coffins representing the people who died during the war, right? So a little heavy piece, not quite as light as my daughter's quaint little picture, but I was just angry and how to get something out. So
Tom,
that's what that's about.
Well, thank you for bringing it. It's spectacular. And I think unless art really affects you, it ain't worth a damn anyway. So that's an amazing piece. And your daughter's piece is incredible. But you're came to this business, so you're a painter. I know if you've ever been to Red Cap, so many of the people that I've seen on this thing are also buyers and fans and collectors of Red Cap Vineyards wines. And most of you have had Tom's unbelievable focaccia bread that you make with, it's actually Howell Mountain starter, right? From the grape
we make
hummus.
bread with Howell Mountain starter from Red Cap yeast from the grapes, from the Red Cap grapes. Yeah.
Why are you up taking stuff out of the pumice pile at our place? If you say it's Red Cap starter. No, I mean, I cannot tell you, some olive oil and that rosemary focaccia with Howell Mountain Red Cap grape starter is just insane. And so many people have been so lucky over the years to come up there and have that bread. If somebody's coming down to your place, like Ralph Bazzani, if you're out there, I just say, I'm coming down because I know you're cooking bread. So where did you get your start as a chef?
So I worked for IBM for a long time. I took a buyout from them and went to chef school in San Francisco. And when I was young 30s, and that's kind of how I ended up in the Valley. So yeah, fully trained chef, worked in restaurants, LA, San Francisco, up here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Philadelphia?
No, I was in finance back then.
Wow. Wow. And so you decided just to throw all of your nest egg away on
Correct.
on 6 acres and a Howell Mountain song.
Well, I began pitching it when I quit a good paying job to be a cook.
Yeah, exactly. I had to say Desiree is stuck around through all this, huh?
She's a little crazy. And then I threw the rest of the money away when I bought that place. Right? So,
Well, hey, I'm telling
clean
you,
sweep.
all of you fine people out there, I know that a lot of you are in very lucrative businesses. You've got to come to the wine business to experience true freedom from the iron clasp of the capital. It will be tremendous for you. Well, let me give you a little taste of this Spring Mountain. I'm not doing this wine justice. I hope people are commenting on the spring, because here is that vineyard again. You know what? I've got to get back up there. For you people that have been on every webinar, you can go away and take a bathroom break when I bring up my one shot of our Spring Mountain.
So where is
Joe,
that spot?
so this is at right almost at 2,000 feet at the top of Spring Mountain Road, and you have Barnett, you have Barron's Hitchcock Vineyard 7 and 8, and then Pride is just more toward the west side.
That's Pride.
But no. So no. So this is Joan Crowley's vineyard, which we actually used to own, and Bob sold this baby when we hit financial rocky waters in the early 2000s. But that was a hilarious meeting. But you can see that you have all this lavender and stuff that grows there. It's an incredible spot, and it's being farmed really well now. So I think our Spring Mountain is really a different wine starting in the 2014 vintage, because we started getting one really great section of that vineyard. And it's dry farm, biodynamic, organic, and it makes this wine that is so perfumed and spectacular. And this 11 is what I think 11 should be. And now we're going to take a break, and we're going to go to Mount Veeder. So next up, let me just take you straight to Mount Veeder. Do we have any questions or comments on the Spring Mountain, Jamie?
Well, we did have a question. Louis Napoli would like to know how much critics' scores actually affect price. What's your thought?
With respect to our place, we've had some of the highest scores of all of our compatriots on Howell Mountain on average, from Spectator, Parker, Galoni, the ones that really matter. And they can affect price in a big way. But to me, my mission has always been to make a profit at the winery, but not go insane. I think some of the pricing is ridiculous. And I put up a post on my social media, on my Instagram not long ago, where we were all tasting a whole bunch of Mount Veeder wines here in the office from current vintage. And ours received a higher score than almost all of those wines. And we were about half the price of most of those wines, I will say. So, and some of that, we were a quarter of the price of, I think, La Jolla. And La Jolla, I have to say, of the Veeders was my favorite wine. It edged our own wine out. But scores definitely affect price point. And for us, it makes it easier to sell the wine, but I'm never going to bastardize what we do for a score. I mean, some people make the wine in order to get a score. And to me, we have to make the wine to get to advocate for the vineyard site. We're stewards of the land for this short period of time. And if we make a wine that I cannot respect as a wine lover for all these years of my life, what are we doing? So I just have to make what I make. And I hope that someday, like what happened with Philip Togny, will happen with Robert Craig, where one of these guys finally wakes up and says, yeah, this is some of the best wine in the Napa Valley. So we're stuck on 95, 96 as the high point, but I think hopefully somebody will come out and we keep pressing the quality forward. And I know you, Tom, right? Your philosophy on scores is
We don't do scores,
you don't do scores.
but we're in a different.
I gave you 100 just last month.
We're in a different boat than you. We don't use distribution, so I don't need scores. We make such a small production that our wine can sell without the scores. And I think, for me and just, I don't know, my personality, lining up a bunch of wines and expecting to get a proper tasting out of that, just to me doesn't make sense, especially with the Howell Mountain wines, which I always say, you need to spend an evening with a bottle of my wine to really understand the wine, because it changes, it grows. There's so much going on in that bottle over the course of drinking it that just going down the line and taking a sip or two and moving on doesn't do it justice. And that's not the way I like to present my wine. So, and we have submitted for a score in the past. We got it was a 93 seller selection, but with that getting the whole advertising package. And so, to me, it just is a little disingenuous with they love to give good scores because accompanying with that is good advertising dollars. And so I'm not sure the validity of it. I think it's a necessary evil for people who distribute their wine, because you need a shelf talker, right? You need a score on there to
Yeah,
get people to take it off the shelf. So.
It is painfully aware during COVID when I had to go to retail because we had 94 points on some of the wines and 93 points on affinity instead of 96 points, that I needed to adjust my price to move out the volume. And I have never made love to a man unless that man will give me 96 points or above. That's what I always say. But scores definitely affect the price of wine. And I think the way to live with red cap is, I know if Desiree's driving Tom home and he can have the last few sips by pulling that bottle out of the console on their Tesla there in the driveway, that's the best way to finish off the red cap is at that end of the evening, right?
Yes, best glass in the bottle. Right?
Tom's all fancy. He'd be over here at Kenzo or Morimoto talking about this or that chef preparation. But for me, I just get it out and tear into it. Well, let's get to Mount Veeder. Any other, Jamie, I should ask you, what do we have going on? I know I see some stuff in the chat, but the Q&A is in place.
Lots of great comments. People are really loving the spring. Lots of nice comments there. Tom, you're a hero, not only for your focaccia, but also your popovers, apparently. And you're getting a lot of comments that people agree with you on scoring as well. So.
Right on. Well, I'm sure if we get 100 points, I'm just going to tell you all that God help you in our price point. I'm kidding. We will keep our heads the size that will fit in the door. But I do believe that we make some of the very best wine in the Napa Valley, and the same is true for my compatriot here. So I know the Chicago gang right now is deep into some Portillo's hot dogs and Italian beef. I just know that. Okay, let me get us out to, now we're gonna go to Mount Veeder. And this is when, I have to say, we've gone over this many times as a group, that this was Robin Williams' property, the famous Pimrae Vineyard, Pymrae. The middle names of Robin's two firstborn children. Thank you, Michael. And it's such an astounding vineyard. And 2011, we're Brian Nuss farmed this place and did a great job year in, year out. But when Pete Richmond started farming this vineyard in the 2013 vintage, I think it really improved what the vineyard could put out. It's very tough for one guy to farm all those acres. And so to me, 11 is an astounding wine because of its power and its youth and its perfume. And in such a cold, wet vintage, there's not, to me, like a lot of pyrazine or veggie in the wine. It has this amazing, I mean, Jamie and I opened up a bottle the other night in the office, and then everybody started coming out, KC and Scott, everybody started coming out. So, oh, is there some 11 Viter open? I'm like, no, nothing to see here. Go back to your cubicles. Shouldn't you be working? Because Jamie and I were just astounded at how well this wine shows. It's really, Viter's a beast every year, and I'm blown away. This to me shows like really, really fine Bordeaux. It has that kind of cedar pencil shaving, a Pauillac. It reminds me of like Lynch-Bage without a bunch of Brettanomyces.
Viter's always been my favorite out of your collection going on ways back.
Why
I haven't had all three. Well, I mean,
I invite you down here and you say Viter, it's Howell Mountain, Tom.
I understand that, but I'm saying that I like the fruit coming off of that Pimray vineyard. I thought it was,
Oh, yeah.
it was nice.
Our own
I
is
found
better,
it-
I think.
Yeah, well, I haven't had all three of your newer wines or with all the new farming stuff
That's right.
lined up before. So, I'm talking long history. I was a big fan of Viter.
Well, you can see.
And I know you struggled with that property a little bit in the beginning, didn't you, on Hal? And you changed the way you farm. You went to.
Oh,
cane
yeah,
pruning and all that.
on Howell and
Yeah.
Viter. Well, this is a shot of Pimray, and you can see it's tucked behind Mount St. John, which is the first mountain. It's back in a little bowl on the north end where a lot of Mount Viter really struggles to get the fruit ripe, particularly on the southern end. And that's why I think like the O'Shaughnessy's, Paul Wool's, and their project at Progeny, where they make these really great, Sean Capio's making wines, but they're doing more Rhone variety wines and different varieties other than Cabernet Sauvignon, so they can get them ripe. But this Northern Bowl is really incredible. That's a good shot of Stephen Tebb. You can see how multifaceted, how beautiful that vineyard is, and why the Tesserons would spend, $34 million in buying it. But so our property is immediately to the right of this picture here.
What about that blue rock that's out there? Like there's.
Yeah,
What is that?
That is a shale, and you can see it. Okay, so I can't really see it. Yeah, I was trying to see if we could see it there. It's just above Stephen's head there. Let me see. You can't really see. This is not a good. Oh, there's some on the very right of the picture.
Oh, yeah.
Over those vines. You can see that blue rock that Tom is talking about, and that is it's not serpentine, which people dread for wine production.
Sure.
It's a totally different, like a shale that is great for the vineyard. So here's our property next door, and we're at the same elevation, but it's what Phil Couturi calls the hanging garden. So it is just like
Beautiful.
absolutely incredible. I gotta have you over there,
Yeah, I
Tom.
gotta go.
Blow your mind. But you can see Phil Couturi farms and does all organic. So the reason there's so much grass in the vineyard 2 weeks ago is because he's waiting for the cover crop to seed before he mows it under. And what he's doing here is a really wild change to cane pruning, and to the naked eye, it just looks like a mess. But he's leaving all these canes out. You can just barely see a couple of buds shooting out on this. And he calls all of these little cane positions, he calls them pressure release valves. So what he wants to do is get some growth and immediately sucker the growth off of those canes. And, Carlos Mendez has been our farmer for a long time. And Robert Craig went up there and said, what in the hell? Yes, what in the F is going on with this vineyard? And I said the same thing at 25 grand an acre. I'm like, if you just ruined our vineyard. But he says, Elton, take it easy. Phil is on top of it, man. There's a reason.
Phil is, he's one of the man out here.
He's
for
the
farming,
man.
So.
And you can see this was up on my neighbor John Boych's property, which I'll get him on sometime. He has a gorgeous property, but looking down on a little red house that somehow didn't burn during the fires. It's just really a beautiful property. There's Phil Couturi, who is if you ever get the chance to sit with him, he is like a grapevine himself. This is taken from up above. So you can see how uniform our property is, which is a major plus. And here we are in a few short weeks, we're going to be at this state where we have flower and fruit set. And oh my goodness, we're going to get like huge wind and hail probably this year, but we deserve a break. So that is the Mount Veeder. And I know for me, it was always Bob Craig's favorite wine at this place. Veeder was always the favorite, but for me, How Mountain is so difficult to produce. It's so stony. It's just so freaking hard to make that wine that I've always loved the How. Any comments on the 11 Mount Veeder?
We do. We've had some really nice comments that it's delicious, it erupts from the glass. We also have a couple questions, Elton. Dan O'Connor wanted to know if you could comment briefly on the drinking window of Veeder, and he's specifically asking about 6, 8, 10, 11, 13, 14, and 16.
Specifically.
Oh, those are really good questions. Well, 2006 is one of my favorite vintages in Napa. That's when Keith Emerson started consulting with us, who's the director of winemaking for Vineyard 29, and he came on with us a short while back. And for our wines, we changed in style in 2005 to much more classic. I would say that 2006, I think, is going to be in a perfect spot in 15 years after vintage date, but it will do 30. 2007 was a little warmer and riper. So to me, despite the fact that we were all 96 points from, Wine Advocate in that year, they were not the wines, in my opinion, that the 2006 wines were. 2008, I had to fire our winemaker then at Harvest because he wrecked the company truck when he was all liquored up right before Harvest started. And I know, Jamie, I'm breaking so many rules right now. It's not even funny.
Putting your finger
But I have witnesses. And so let me just say that in that year, it was a ragtag team of the office and myself that had to make that wine. And 2008 was already a difficult vintage. As Tom said, the berries were extremely small. It was much more successful on Valley Floor than the mountains. And I don't often admit that, but in the mountains, as Tom can tell you, we had frost right at flower and fruit set. We had freaking hail. We had everything you could ever have in 2008. Was a tough year. But beyond that, all of these wines, 14s are going to live forever, 15s are going to live forever, 16s, 17s, I think are going to have a very long life. We've been blessed with this great run of vintage. I think 2012 is overrated. Personally, like 07, I think a lot of those wines are too hollow to live. But my drinking window at Robert Craig, if you can wait to 10 years after vintage date, the wine is showing itself. It's showing almost everything. 15 years after vintage date is my ideal drink time. And then these wines are going to live for so long and stay young. But to me, 6 years after vintage date, they really start. I mean, this is 10 years in, but it's 11's an elegant vintage. I mean, it is a cool, wet vintage, no matter what Galoni says. It was not an ideal year.
No.
So what about your
wines?
Anybody? What about your wines?
Well, I agree with you. I think you hit the right parameters. I think the wine fully expresses itself at 10 years. I think they last 30 years. I don't think you go near them before 5 years. And when you do drink them at 5 years, they're still young as hell. And yeah, I know where that's going to go, but maybe you don't want to just bust it out, right? If you do, you give it a ton of air. But yeah, I'm a firm believer in a little more age on the How Mountains. When your Valley Floor wines are dying, that's when you go to the mountains. Right?
Yes, when the Valley Floor wines are dying.
Spoken like a couple of mountain guys.
There is no tartaric acid in your winery at all. That is the best when you go down there and you see, what was it where you guys crest? I won't mention names, but there were big bags of Mega Purple, pallets of Mega Purple
for a custom client,
and bags of tartaric acid. That's a sign. That's the sign of the Franken beast. But I have not tasted these 11s in so long, and despite the fact that I was in Arizona yesterday hosting a dinner, and Candy and Vince kept me up too late. And I had to Uber back to the hotel at the crack of dawn. And then it seemed like get up 25 minutes later and get on a flight. And then there was a wreck in San Francisco, and drive around the Bay Bridge and then back across the San Rafael Bridge and pick up my computer, and still managed to forget my mouse. These wines are invigorating me. I think if you could drink a lot of mountain wine in your life, I think it's the fountain of youth. I mean,
Not by looking at
that's right. Why would you go searching when it's right here?
We have another really great question, Elton. Dave Leahy, Dave and Carol asked, he said that in our newsletter, we mentioned that some rootstocks work better in specific soils than others do. And he wanted to know, do we grow our varietals from their original rootstocks, or are they grafted onto sturdier stock? He was just curious. Awesome wine.
We are not own rooted. So our rootstocks are all, what the nurseries are, what they deem clean. So we're not like, you can find some older vines that are on St. George or something like that. But in the mountains, almost all of us, I don't know what you guys do, but we're on 110R everywhere and 101-14 if there's a space. And when I say it's more vigorous, a more vigorous section gets 101-14, but most of it is 110R for us. I don't know what you're.
I'm on 101-14, and if I had to do it again, I'd put it on maybe 1103P.
1103P.
I heard that's pretty nice too, but we're talking these crazy numbers.
In 50 years, you can just make that decision again.
What I found out about the 101-14 was during those 4 drought years, 12, 13, 14, 15, definitely saw production coming down.
Yes.
And by 15, we had half a crop because the drought affected the vines so much. So we couldn't give it extra water. It was almost like the moon there, as you know, after 4 years of drought. So I definitely saw the limitations of 101-14. And if I had to do it again, although I love the fruit off of it, I'd like something with a little more kick to it to get pushed through those drought years. Because it seems to be a little more common. So,
God, well, I can't wait for us all to come up and see that 1103P at Tom's place with a canopy like up to the ceiling. He'll have a chainsaw out doing the hedging. But
what's the other one you have in there?
Well, we do 101-14, and 110R does the best on rocky stuff,
yeah.
Which I mean, all of our stuff is, as I always say, Randy Dunn's quote is, how are things up in that fucking windy rock, Elton? and because we're on that windy rock, 110R, you got to get a vine that can survive anything, and that's so. The question is a very good one, but we're not own rooted. Everything has been, basically hybrid or grafted over to something, but it's pretty much all a derivation on that Missouri, the Missouri River original rootstock that saved all the vines in France from phylloxera. So everything's kind of a derivation of that. And of course, we tried to bring phylloxera back with AXR1,
yeah,
with AXR back in the 80s and early 90s, and that's when I was at Robert Mondavi, and they had to sell their family company because they had to replant 55,000 acres. So that's what that'll do for you. That little footnote from Davis that said maybe susceptible to the root mouse.
Yeah, right.
Well, let's get into Howell Mountain, because that is our most important wine, Tom, and our best wine.
You're still a little sour about the,
I've had it
the
with
Vinyard
Vinyard, Vinyard I love, but
hey man,
Vinyard's the girlfriend in college. That's not your lifelong love, man. I mean,
hey, you live it, bro.
Shelley's
I
Howell
drink it.
Mountain. There have been Vinyards. Shelley, if you're listening, there have been no other. So Shelley says hi to everybody. Okay. 2011 Howell Mountain. Well, it's a really great time. Jason is up there right now fighting for fighting for his life in bottling. I cannot tell you what hard work that was. I did it my first 5 years at Craig and then said, why am I doing this? We'll just pay somebody. I do not need this experience anymore. It's absolutely miserable. So let me give a little toast to my folks up top that are bottling wine, doing all the labor. With you guys making like 350 cases, you all celebrate your bottling and have people over, 9,000 cases. You don't celebrate anything. You just try and get through it.
Even at 300-400 cases,
Woo.
bottling's still a bitch.
John Nasserini says that your 2011s through the 13s are from Red Cap are drinking beautifully right now.
Oh, well, thank you.
John, your intelligence is always shining through. So I see the chat is going strong, Jackie, or
That's nice.
why am I calling you Jackie? Jamie, you might have to man that too. If anybody's saying anything negative, immediately take them off this platform.
Those are the people I want to hear.
Yeah, those are the people I want to hear.
There's lots of love, lots of love.
Love it. Just so you know, I mean, Jamie mans the Q&A. So if you want to comment or give a shout out, she'll do it for you. I've learned the hard way that I cannot man the chat and do this at the same time. All right. So now we look at that. Look at that stunning photograph. 2011 Howell Mountain is where we're going now. So we're going from Spring Mountain, which is north of Mount Veeder, but I think the wines are less savage than Mount Veeder in the Mayacamas range on the west side of the valley. We went from about close to 2,000 feet of elevation on Spring down to about 1,800 some odd feet on Mount Veeder. And now we're going up to 2,300 feet to our state property on Howell Mountain. And so the Mayacamas range has been pushed up from the ocean floor by earthquake 5 million years ago, meaning it's a very young mountain range, like the Blue Ridge Mountains are 20 million plus years old, but most of it is fossilized marine sediment. So it's shale, it's these sandy, chalky soils. The wines are, really deep, round base notes, whereas Howell Mountain, Pritchard Hill, it is knees and elbows. So these are the soils on our vineyard. Tom's soil is the same, and it is this really high iron content rocks, and your soil is a little more broken up. You guys don't have like 100% boulders, but it's all there.
No,
The minute you start digging down, right?
a lot of fractured rock, but we do have, because our site, unlike yours, where yours slopes down, you've probably lost a lot of your topsoil, where ours is kind of a rolling plateau. So it's kind of stayed within the area. And so we have about a 6 foot soil before we hit any kind of clay barrier at below 6 feet. And so I know a lot of the soils up there are pretty thin, especially on a big slope.
I'm like, what is this word you use? Topsoil.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that, Red Cap is a little special in that way that we have deep soils up on that Rocky Mountain, which is unusual.
Well, we need to get some cap next to the Craig here.
Yeah. I think a little overzealous on pounding this cap. Maybe.
Oh, yeah. All right. This is like being told you can have cake and eat it too. Craig and Cap, Howell Mountain. Okay. Boy, that smells fantastic.
A lot of floral.
So this is some of our vineyard up there. That tufa that we have is all candlestick, is this white tufa. And then the rest of it is that red rock.
How do you compare the two for growing?
They produce different tasting wines, and the section of the vineyards taste different. The tufa produces almost like a really, really dark, inky wine, whereas the red soils produce this perfumed violet, super structured wine. There are interesting differences in the wines. But people make different styles of wine from different vineyards. The sections that we have tufa, the wines are crazy black in color, and the others are super structured. So here's Scott Johnson again in the vineyard, the winery where all the barrels were pulled out to get the bottling done. The green shoots are still here on Howell Mountain. I was just up there. I hope everybody will come out. Bud break has just happened. Again, it looks like a garden on the valley floor, but where we are you kidding me? It is all going on. So you can see that spring is coming back to Howell Mountain. And another shot of Scott. I just want you all to remember, wine club or die at Robert Craig. And then some of the Kansas City crew. Oh my God, Brian Vaught from Kansas City and his beautiful wife came up to celebrate it was a big birthday. I want to say it was his 40th, but they ended up going to French Laundry and we were up there. It was so freezing cold. They had to use the windshield wipers on the way up to the winery last week. And you got up top and it was just glorious sunshine. So, and this is what I'm going to get back to now that I've had to buy a house and deal with insurance companies and get into this next year and hopefully open up or back open on the winery. So I hope that you all get out and get some exercise and do something outdoors. I'm going to get back to it because
bike, man.
it's you got to be, I have blossomed up about, 8 pounds in the last 3 months and you feel it. I got to get back to my wine drinking weight. But these Howell Mountains, Tom, this red cap, just glorious perfume to it. It has all of this fruit. It's beautiful.
I get hit really, we hardly ever get to drink it. We don't have much left. So, but I just got hit with a big violet. People say that about the violet.
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely got that right in the beginning.
I think I managed to pull this bottle of Howell 11 that I have. I'm not crazy about. I'm telling you that. I just have one.
Nice.
Do you? I think it's a little stinky. I'm gonna pull another one out of there the minute we finish this. How's your bottle, Jamie?
I mean, you drink
You're
more
muted.
than I do, but
Yeah, mine's great, Elton.
I literally just had this wine 2 days ago and it was so spectacular, but this is what you get when you use, when it's not Diem, when it's not a consistent closure. So this wine to me, the Howell Mountain is my favorite of these three. This one right now is, to me, it's got like a little,
it seems
like
like it needs to blow off a little bit.
to me, it's just an off bottle. It's a little, I won't say it. And I had one of my English MW friends would always say burning condom, but which was a terrible way to describe the smell. Okay, it may come around, but I doubt it. This wine is, if your Howell Mountain is not tasting, 11 is not tasting perfect, I hope you can just sleep on it and not bill me back for it, but it is an amazing wine. But
I can't define Elton.
the reason, the reason that we do this, and it was only, I think, less than $300 for all three bottles, is because we want to get together and enjoy everybody's company, get to meet other vintners like Tom, who has, I really love the picture of your daughter. And then you came in heavy and went, full on Jackson Pollock with your coffin flag, but extremely powerful. Thank you. But if you have the chance to get to Red Cap and to meet Desiree or Tom or his lovely daughter, is she starting in the business too? No,
she lives in LA and is a social worker. So
she'll
be back soon.
She'll be back on the vineyard soon. She'll be living in that house. But Michael DeWin is one of the great guys. You can follow him at Red Cap Cellars or at the Howell Monk. And I noticed you're like Van Gogh. You've gone off the deep end. You cut your ear and got rid of Howell Mountain Man on Instagram. I was trying to tag you. I was like, where is this guy?
So I got a little angry at their, dug a little into the new privacy agreement on Instagram and got furious.
Oh my God, just give them your info. They all have it, Tom.
Hey man, I am anti-big tech. and doing everything I can to not be a hypocrite. So
I don't know why it didn't work out at IBM.
we're bullheaded.
Yeah, exactly.
what do you say?
They know what size of underwear I wear because Mac Weldon's always sending me the ads for exactly the right size. So they actually do know what size of underwear you wear.
We've got a couple other questions. Elton, do we have time for a couple of quick ones?
We do. And then we're gonna, I mean, I don't know if Scott can play us out or not. Can he try, or are we just,
Yeah,
I don't know. Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, I probably can then.
All right, Scott, then one more question. We'll have Scott play us out. And let me just say to everybody, if you get a chance, come up and see us on Howl. Love to everyone out there. It's so nice, I have to say, to be vaccinated and all of us hanging out here drinking wine
Sure.
and to be able to get on an airplane without fear of death and see people again. And so to everybody that's on here, thank you so much for coming on and having these beautiful wines. And we look forward to seeing you out here this summer. As you know, the Craig will welcome you with open glasses and open hearts. So Scott, I'm dying to have you play us out. Jamie, one more question.
Okay, well, I have a quick one for Tom. And one of our regulars wants to know, Tom, are you going to, will there be any opportunity for our folks to purchase any of your wines? Do you have any wines currently for sale?
We do have wine for sale. Unfortunately, not the 11. That's long gone, but you can get on our website at redcapvineyards.com and all the available wines are on there.
Tom,
And we would definitely love you to come and visit as well.
that's not enough. I need a one-time, like half off shipping or a little 10% love, because we'll send an email to everybody with your site on there.
Will.
You gotta give my people something.
I'll be glad to give your peeps, because a lot of your peeps are my peeps as well.
That's true.
And regardless.
And then the
So we
only-
already offer free shipping, so we'll give you club discount and everything, so that's 15% off.
Awesome.
If you let us know when you order in the comment section or whatever that, you know, you were.
No, we'll send an email and put a link to your,
Yeah,
a direct link to
right.
your site. So you guys can opt in and get but their wines are spectacular. They're one of the few wines from the Napa Valley that I buy year in and year out. They're amazing.
Great. And then just the one quick last question, Elton. Lee wants to know, what's your favorite pairing with each wine? Just a quickie.
Well, you know, I think I'm a Richard only follower, and I believe the most complex wines need to go with more simple food. So I really love doing truly world-class Cabernet with just a simple, really good piece of steak on the grill. Or since my wife has basically demanded that I be vegetarian anymore, we will do, you know, Beyond Burger, you know, ground meat for tacos or whatever. I mean, really great wine needs a simple backdrop. So that's it, I would say. I mean, I think, Tom, what would you say as a chef? I like really simple. I love pot roast, you know, duck, game. I love it with Howell Mountain.
So funny you bring up duck. I mean, to me, if I had to impress, I would do a cinnamon marinated duck with this dish, because I think Howell Mountain wine has a certain amount of little baking spice in it. And a lot of those kind of hard herbs or hard spices that kind of match well. Moroccan kind of lamb, you know, duck with cinnamon, anything without spice though, right? But I find like those kind of hard spices work really well with this one, with Howell Mountain wines in general.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do.
Keep it simple, comfort food. And what Tom has to say is so much fancier than what I have to say on this subject. Well, I've taken up more than an hour of your time. Tom, I love you, man.
Love you too.
Thanks so
brother.
much for coming on and doing
Man,
this.
Love doing it.
And
Thanks, everybody.
let's get Scott Castro on here to redeem himself. I'm gonna mute us out. Scott, take it
I'm
away.
so nervous that as soon as I start playing, I'm going to cut out again. But can you hear me now?
I mean, we can hear
We
you.
got you.
All right. Okay. There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch and bring me out the door. Finally I can see you crystal clear. Go ahead and sell me out and I'll lay your shit back. See how I lay with every piece of you. Don't underestimate the things that I will do. There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch and it's breaking me out the dark. The skies of your love remind me of us, keep me thinking that we almost had it all. The skies of your love leave me breathless, and I can't help feeling we could have had it all, rolling in the tea. You had my heart inside of your hands, but you played it to the beat. Baby, I have a story to be told, but I put all one on you and I'm gonna make your head bound. Think of me in the depths of your despair, making a home down there as mine sure won't be shared. Skies of your love remind me of us, keep me thinking that we almost had it all. The skies of your love that leave me breathless, and I can't help feeling we could have had it all, rolling in the tea. You had my heart inside of your hands, but you played it to the beat. Throw your soul through every open door, counting your blessings till you find what you look for. Turn my sorrow into treasured gold. You'll pay me back in kind and reap what you've sown. We could have had it all, rolling in the tea. You had my heart inside of your hands, but you played it, yeah, you made it. We could have had it all, rolling in the tea. You had my heart inside of your hands, but you played it to the beat. All right. Thanks, Elton. Thanks all the Kragers out there. Hope you guys have a good night.